Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this session. As Rob mentioned, I am Jenna Dix, the Director of the Technology Transfer Program for Crane. First slide, please. Technology transfer really provides a means for partnering with Crane outside of the typical FAR-based contract mechanisms like Rob just mentioned. So tech transfer can really provide an entry point into Crane for our ecosystem partners, a way to access the resources that are inside our lab. As many of you know, we routinely work with industry, academia, entrepreneurs, and other government organizations to find opportunities for strategic partnerships and collaboration. Next slide, please. So what is technology transfer? It is really our ability to make the innovations of Crane available to those outside of our fence line. So the idea here is that everything that we do, all of the research that's conducted at Crane is conducted and funded with taxpayer dollars. So where appropriate, it's our mission to make sure that we maximize the public's investment into our lab and ensure that the greatest value is achieved. So we really try to enable the private sector to leverage these investments to their advantage by using tech transfer and by providing access to the resources of Crane. So these resources include many things, but most notably our expertise. So our people, that we have 2,000 plus scientists and engineers that are leading their fields that can be leveraged for your use. Our technologies, we have over 400 inventions available for licensing and use within the private sector. Our specialized capabilities, facilities, and equipment. We have many unique capabilities at Crane that can't be found in the private sector, and through tech transfer, we can make those resources available to you. And one other thing that I want to say about our intellectual property portfolio, something that makes it a little unique compared to what you might see in industry or academia, is that Crane is a transition laboratory, meaning that we exist to deliver technologies and products to the warfighter. So how that translates in our IP portfolio is that many of our technologies are late stage. Many have been fielded and even more have reached a prototype or testing. So this really helps to reduce the risk and investment needed to take these technologies and apply them to a private sector application. Next slide, please. This slide, back one. This slide really speaks to the types of engagement mechanisms that we have available and the various means for partnering via tech transfer. It's really the how you gain access to those aforementioned resources. So first is the Cooperative Research and Development Agreement, or CRADA as we refer to it. It's an agreement that allows us to work collaboratively to conduct joint research and development with non-federal partners. So we can also use the CRADA to exchange equipment or material. We can use that equipment or material to conduct some type of research or evaluation. We can provide access to the expertise that we have at our lab to assist you in R&D projects that you may be pursuing. And then we can also offer support through technology commercialization efforts when and if you license technologies from Crane. So just a few details on CRADAs. So first and foremost, we cannot send funding out on a CRADA. It is not a funding mechanism, but the CRADA is certainly not intended to bypass a standard FAR-based acquisition process, but they really do allow a mechanism for us to work collaboratively on efforts that can sometimes support an acquisition effort. So a CRADA is always going to lay out terms and conditions that are needed for the partnership, including intellectual property clauses, how we handle inventions, data rights, security, those types of things. And one of the great benefits of the CRADA is that anything that the government develops under the CRADA, the partner has exclusive commercial rights to that technology, or has the option for exclusive commercial rights. And the government is always just looking to maintain our government purpose rights for the technology developed, but it does really provide a great opportunity for our partners to work with us on R&D, and then they get the benefit in the commercial market with those exclusive rights. So a 𝐓𝐞𝐜𝐴 is really a very flexible agreement that enables access to the expertise, the technology, and the capabilities of Crane. We do a lot of these agreements every year and have gotten the process down pretty good, so we can generally get them in place without too much time and have a fairly efficient process set up. Next is our testing services. So this is in our work with private party agreement portfolio, and these are really to get access to those capabilities and facilities at Crane. So these are more fee-for-service based arrangements that allow you to get inside and access those capabilities. We perform testing at your request and provide those results back to you. There isn't collaboration, there isn't joint work, and generally there aren't data rights or IP concerns to deal with like there might be with a 𝐓𝐞𝐴. And then patent licenses are exactly that, the license and the right to make, use, or sell a technology that we've developed at Crane in the commercial market. And we really have a lot of flexibility in the way that we are able to structure licenses. We have the ability to offer exclusive or partially exclusive licenses or a non-exclusive license. And right now, in response to the pandemic, we actually have a special licensing program that offers royalty-free, time-limited licenses to any technologies in our portfolio. And we're always happy to talk with folks about licensing options or to match you up with technologies. And we also have a really great resource with our partners at TechLink who can help work you through that process if you're interested. Next slide. So I also wanted to take a few minutes to talk through some scenarios of what partnering with Crane through tech transfer really looks like. I think it might be a little more impactful if you have some specific examples here. So the first example is a company who needs to utilize the unique testing capabilities at Crane, right? They may have some batteries that need tested, and they are looking for us to perform those tests for them. So they would have a defined specification, certain testing that they're looking for and results that they're hoping to achieve. And then Crane would conduct that work for them, provide the test results back, and that would be kind of the end of the partnership, if you will. In this case, the testing could be associated with a government contract, a current or potential government contract, or it might be material that will be sold commercially. It doesn't even necessarily have to be something that is associated with government contract. The idea is that we have a unique capability and you have a need. So that's where really those fee-for-service based agreements play into tech transfer here. And again, since the government isn't providing engineering advice and there isn't collaboration, we're really just providing a test, completing a test and providing results. There aren't data rights and things like that have to be worried about. The next example is for when a company has a product that they believe would be of interest to Crane, and you want to provide us an opportunity to evaluate or assess that product. And then if our folks look at that and they say, yes, this is something that we are interested in, we could partner, again, using the Cooperative Research and Development Agreement, or _CRADA, that would allow us to receive the material or the product, conduct an evaluation and assessment, and provide some feedback. How does this work in a ruggedized environment? How does this integrate into our system, right? And so we can really work with you on a 𝐓𝐞𝐴 to see how that particular technology might work for a government use. And in some cases, this might sound familiar to a bailment agreement where we might exchange equipment or material, but really partnering in this way through a 𝐓𝐞𝐴 allows us the opportunity to work with you and work collaboratively to assess and evaluate a product or a technology. Next slide, please. This next example would be applicable for a company who might be working on a high-value technology, high value both internal and external to the government, right? But could really use the inputs from some of the subject matter experts that are inside of the government labs. So this really gets at that accessing the expertise of Crane, getting to our people in the intellectual capital that we hold. So this would be a case where we might jointly want to conduct some R&D solve a tough technical challenge. We want to work together to try and solve that problem. In this case, we would use the CRADA. We would work on the technology development, and then of course the CRADA would provide all the pre-specified terms and conditions on how we'll handle intellectual property, all those types of fun terms that come along with it. We do the collaborative work, share the results, and then each party maintains the rights to the technology or the data that is developed. And then the last example really speaks to accessing the innovations at Crane. So if a company identifies a Crane developed technology that aligns to their business portfolio or would integrate well with something that they're currently working on, we could put together a patent license, giving the company, again, the right to make, use, or sell the technology in the commercial sector. In this case, we might also enter into a CRADA to allow the inventors of the technology the opportunity to assist you with those efforts. We always try to view our licensees as partners, and we typically don't want to execute a license and say, go off, do good things, let us know how it goes, right? We really want to create that partnership. So as long as the situation allows, we generally try to draw in our inventors and make sure that that there's a way for our licensees to collaboratively work to commercialize a product or a technology. So it's definitely situation dependent, but it really is an ideal scenario and something that we strive for. And again, as I mentioned previously, we have a lot of flexibility in how we can structure licenses. So it's really generally kind of always a case-by-case basis, but just kind of the point there is that there is flexibility in how we license technology. And to that end, really a lot of flexibility in how we use all of these mechanisms, how we use the testing services agreements, how we use CRADAs, and how we use licenses and education partnership agreements and other things. One of the things that we always want to make sure that we're clear about is what are your expectations and your objectives. We want to be sure that we have that good open conversation up front so that we really have a good idea of what it is that each party is hoping to achieve so that we can craft a partnership agreement that will support that type of outcome. Next slide, please. And then before I wrap up, I want to talk just briefly about why we do technology transfer. And I know that I mentioned the goal of maximizing the ROI of the government's R&D investments, right? Ensuring that the maximum value is achieved from those investments. And that is a huge piece of that, creating economic impact, growing technology-based jobs, and of course the defense industrial base. But second, and of big significance to us as a DoD lab, is support to the warfighter. Through the use of CRADAs, you all help us just as much as we help you. Leveraging partnerships through CRADAs to deliver technologies to the warfighter is something that we have found obviously a lot of value in and had a lot of success with over the last several years. And then next slide, please. And then to that end, this slide really depicts the economic impact generated from DoD and NSWC Crane license agreements, right? So when we're licensing our technologies out. Every few years, OSD funds our partner TechLink to conduct an economic impact study of all DoD patent licenses. So they do a really great job in conducting these studies, and this last one achieved over a 95% response rate, which is really remarkable. And the last study that was released in 2018 examined over 1,100 license agreements from labs across the DoD, and found a direct economic impact of $27 billion with over 200,000 new jobs created. So that's a fairly significant economic impact for the licenses coming out of the Department of Defense. And then Crane alone was able to create a $62 million direct economic impact as a result of our own license agreements. And then one other thing I want to say here on this is that a couple of years back, Crane had the opportunity to participate in a pilot study that was specifically focused on CRADAs and the economic impact generated by CRADAs with DoD labs. And that study was able to see similar participation rates as the license, and found that Crane's CRADA partners saw $2.8 billion in sales as a result of those CRADAs. And 2.6 of that 2.8 billion were sales back to the US military. So really what that means is that CRADAs are a direct contributor to our ability and to your ability to successfully deliver technology to the warfighter. And again, I just wanted to touch on those numbers so that you can get a sense of the impact that tech transfer has, both in the private sector, on the commercial side, but also within the DoD and our ability to deliver technology to our warfighters. Next slide, please. Lastly, I really just wanted to point out that every federal laboratory has a technology transfer program. So if you want or need expert help, technology, or access to infrastructure within a government laboratory, there's a place to go find it. The Federal Laboratory Consortium for Tech Transfer is a consortium of over 1,000 federal laboratories, and you can find labs working in specific technical areas within a particular geographic region, and you can browse the capabilities that lab has, look at their technologies available for licensing, and of course, find the name and contact information for one of the people in the lab, because that sometimes can be the hard part, is just finding who to contact at a particular lab. And then on the next slide is a screenshot of the FLC business platform where you can search for lab information. So I just wanted you to see that there. It's federallabs.org, and you can browse and check out all of the different great things and innovation happening in federal labs across the country. And I am always happy to help make connections to other laboratories as needed. So if you know that you'd like to partner with a federal lab, but it isn't Crane, we can still help. So please reach out. And then my last slide is just the contact information for our tech transfer staff. Please feel free to reach out, get in touch with us. We'd be happy to discuss ways that we can partner or answer any questions that you might have about technology transfer. So at this